having a conversation about expectations is really good. Like, between husband and wife, a few other people come in. Like, what are your kids expecting? What do you? Yeah. We had a conversation. We just lived with us over the years, and where something to us that was obviously restful, people were like, "Oh, when you say rest, are you saying X, Y, and Z?" You know, it just wasn't. It was obvious to us. It was not obvious to them. An idea of what was restful. So, yeah. And I think even Stephen and I sometimes having those conversations, knowing our personalities, it's restful to me to go out and do a lot of stuff. It's restful to Stephen to not do that.
Totally.
Talking about that and balancing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think two things to add. One is, when you're starting, I would be really cautious about inviting people into this. Just to be aware, this isn't a show. You know, it's actually, the rest isn't just symbolic, it's actual rest. So if you bring a bunch of people to talk about rest, but you stress out, or your wife stresses out, or you're worn out afterwards, it's actually like, it's not a win.
Yeah.
I think we experienced this in our community where there was this incredible pressure to do it with everyone, and we felt like the best thing we could do for our community was pull back and pull the plug and just say, the best way our family can serve this community is by just legitimately resting, which meant from them for a day out of the week.
Yeah. That's good.
So the second one is to retell the story. Part of the Sabbath is to remember that you were slaves in Egypt, like it says in Deuteronomy 5, and the Lord brought you out. To remember that it is the Lord who makes you holy. And so this is one of those things that takes time and you can really begin to build up, but there are symbols associated with the gospel. Interactions or questions you can ask your kids associated with the gospel. And surprise, like, that's one of the things that's really important to me, that freedom, if you're a slave and suddenly being free, part of the joy or explosive elation is the surprise that God rescued us. So how do you recreate that? Those are things that I'm always thinking about. So we have a symbol in our family we use, and in traditional Jewish Shabbat liturgies in the family, they're actually, in most of them, there isn't a part where you go deep into the slavery side. And I think it's really important to start there, because our idea is really cool because we were slaves. And one of the worst things that happens to people from an identity perspective is they start the story as, oh, of course I'm a son of the Father. What else you got for me? You know, like that's really destructive, because you don't ever get to a point of, you know, real joy if you start from, of course I'm awesome and God loves me, you know, and that's, so you have to start earlier in the story when you were a slave. So part of, you know, what we do is we have this box that's sort of, it's like represents slavery, and the kids, I have this conversation with the kids, and I don't have the same questions. I always try to throw them off to see if they actually know what I'm saying and they're not just going through a catechism or something. And so, you know, when were we slaves? You were a slave? Really? Tell me about that. You know, like, and so what I try to do is get the kids to tell the whole gospel story from basically slavery to redemption. And just by asking questions and having a conversation. That's one way of doing it. It helps. It's nice with the, you know, kids about the age of our kids. They're younger. So that's one way to retell the story. I'm curious, what are other ways you guys have found that help you to say, okay, this is who we were, this is now who we are? What works for your family? That's a lot of fun. So acting it out with your kids, letting them play the part, let them physically feel and see what it's like to go from slavery to freedom. Yeah. Any other ideas? A friend of ours that was a part of our community Gavin Long and their family, they actually wrote a book just around this, like the different ways that they do this. And they even have seasonal colors, like different parts of the year. The book is called At Home with God, and so I think this is an area we can go a lot deeper into. Any other ways you guys do this?
We wrote out the story, and it's most distinct form. We have unique parts that are almost like lead sentences. Then we started cutting the slips of paper and we hand them out.
Yeah.
And we tell the story. Every 8 people get to share.
That's awesome.
How about music? Is any of you guys? I think that's one of the things that's missing a lot, because when you're restoring a tradition, it's really hard to go back and find that part of it. So, writing music that really helps. I don't know if has anybody felt like they've done that, or that they've experimented with that, or want to experiment with that, or whatever. I know that the Teresa's have sort of gone down that road, and if you go into a Jewish home, they sing the whole liturgy. It's like a chanting. The father sings it, and that I think there's something really special about that. That's just, I feel like we could go a lot deeper if we integrated music into the story better. But I think that's something that needs to be artistically explored. Okay, ushering in the Sabbath. When does it actually begin? Rest starts. So this is not in the Bible, the idea of lighting a candle for the Sabbath or lighting Sabbath candles, but it's a really cool, like, clear beginning of the Sabbath. So we sort of adopted that as a way to say, now we know it started. And so as soon as the candle is lit, we say Shabbat Shalom, and we sing this song that we learned in Israel, it's like, and there's a celebration, like, we're there, we're in the Sabbath, we're like inside of it now, and there should be this real sense of excitement and peace, and so that's a big part of it. There's a traditional blessing that has been sort of written with Jesus in mind. Blessed are you, Lord God, King of the universe, who has given us shalom through Jesus our Messiah, and who allows us to experience the peace and rest of the life to come, beginning with the lighting of the candle of Shabbat. And so there's a lot of different wordings to that blessing, but to say a blessing, and the other cool thing too is that in the way that the Jews do this part of the liturgy, the mother always lights the candle. So the idea there is she's always going to be the hardest one. She's going to feel the least likely to, like, I can rest now. And so you let her light the candle, and bam, that's the way that they do that. Any other ideas or ways you guys have seen or experienced or crafted ways of ushering in the Sabbath?
I just have a couple of questions.
Sure.
One of the things that we find difficult with a 9-month-old baby is somebody's not going to be able to rest on Saturday. Really, I mean, it feels like there's just that work that needs to be done. So I'm just curious, like, how other people feel about that. Because I feel like I can just, like, check out, get the couch, and be done. And it's restful. I mean, but it's hard. And then it's like I want to help, and then it doesn't feel restful.
Right.
So, like, I'm just curious how
You have to divide and conquer the rest.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. How can you guys experience that? Or?
We give our kids away the whole.
Just put them outside.
Yeah,
We say Shabbat Shalom.
Benadryl, I hear.
Part of why this is difficult too is that there's a multi-generational aspect, and for grandparents, taking care of a baby can be really restful because they're like, get me my hands on that baby, So it's a little bit, part of what we're doing is when you're starting this with your generation, there is something missing. And that's been a constant conversation in our family. How do we involve our parents? And but I think part of that is why it's so difficult. You've got one, and then you have a family who is only like sort of that in that young kid mode. You don't have older kids. You don't have uncles and aunts. You don't have you're really under-resourced compared to like a traditional family. And that may change, but that is a hard season. It was difficult for us. Any other thoughts about how to especially make this restful for mom?
I mean, my thoughts aren't super concrete in that, but I just feel like one of the cool things about this is that there's an incredible freedom from your Shabbat looking like someone else's who doesn't have that same issue with where their kids are at. So for us, it's just, like if we let our kids have poppets on that, because that's like a big deal for us. And for you guys, for whatever it is to take that extra measure of rest, it's hard to say what it would be for your family, but, I guess just this isn't really an answer, but just take the pressure off of it has to be this thing where, the baby will cry and we will have to take care of him or her, but to pre-plan it a little bit, kind of like what you shared.
And maybe not just a 9-month-old, but, we do the same thing, like some special drink night, but we also, like, kids don't eat. They don't eat, like, obviously you're not experiencing that yet, but 2- and 3-year-olds eating dinner tends to not be completely awesome. And so Sabbath meal, we're just like, screw it. You don't want to eat, you don't want to eat. We're going to throw it away. We're not going to save it for the next day. Because you can. So, yeah.
So neglect your children.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, to Ben's statement, getting creative with how you're going to do that, even if it means for you guys right now, like, wait until she is napping and do the dinner part. Maybe she's sleeping. I don't know what it is. But the meal is the one that lots of times with the kids as well, so they do the harvest. But then the next day, the next stuff.
This is how we can keep this active, just on the same boat. We just kind of look at it as a team, and it's like, when the kid's up, we still have to work, we're working together, but as soon as he goes down for a nap, it's like, we go down for a nap. And if that's 3 times in one day, like, awesome. You know what I mean? Like, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, but we almost get, like, really excited, like, when he rests, we're like, we can rest together,
This part is also really cool, having a generational blessing, or really taking advantage of the Sabbath in a way where you can, you're celebrating family. Like I said, that sons get to be sons and daughters get to be daughters, and fathers and mothers and grandparents, and all of these roles are really important. And God created them and designed them, but there's not in our culture a real way to express it. We are really good at expressing individuality in our culture, saying, oh, you're an artist, or whatever, you're an athlete. And so we celebrate those things, but we don't necessarily celebrate sonship and, daughters and fathers. And this is hard for us. And so I think it's really important to really think through on the Sabbath, how do you celebrate all the roles of the family? And what special place of honor does each person get to experience? So like when my parents are around for a Sabbath, or my wife's parents, the grandfather always blesses his sons and grandsons. And the grandmother blesses her daughters and granddaughters. And so we give them like a little card, because they're not used to this, and they can read this blessing over them and really experience it. So the blessing that we do for sons is, there's a specific verse in Genesis 49 that says, "You bless your sons, bless them. May the Lord make you like Ephraim and Manasseh." So we say that, and we also say, "And give you the faith of Abraham, the heart of David, and the righteousness of Christ as you build our family from generation